3. My first days in school were uneventful, except for the shock my first name had for my teachers. Of course, they quickly solved this problem by simply using my last name. However, this didn't stop my classmates from calling me Whoreson on all occasions, causing my teachers to curse my mother's choice of names. At this stage of life, school was wonderful. On our way to school, we used to steal from the delivery trucks making their morning stops. On a few occasions, some prostitute who was still up working or just coming out would yell at me, "I'm telling your mammy on your boy if you steal that junk." I don't know if they ever told, but if they did, Jessie never said anything about it. Because the whores always yelled at me, it made me popular with my gang. They commented on the fact that all the prostitutes on Hastings knew me. My best friend, Tony, would put his arm around my shoulder. His mother sometimes worked with Jessie, so we spent a lot of time together. "Me and you, Whoreson," he would say, "we gonna be the best pimps in the whole goddamn world." I would look up at Tony's dark face and grin. He was taller than me, and I was tall for my age. Tony could outrun, plus outfight anybody in our gang, except Ape. Everybody knew couldn't nobody whip Ape. He was big, dumb, and strong. There were a lot of grown men who wouldn't tangle with Ape. We always waited on the corner in the mornings for everybody in our gang before going to school. If somebody wasn't going, there was always some kid in the gang who knew about it. Tony would stop by for me, then we would stop and get Ape. This way, everybody came to the corner with somebody. After 9 or 10 of us got together, we would start for school, looking for something to steal on the way. After my 9th birthday, I began to really understand the meaning of my name. I began to understand just what my mother was doing for a living. There was nothing I could do about it, but even had I been able to, I wouldn't have changed it. There was a boy in our gang named Milton, whose mother wouldn't allow Tony or me in her house. She didn't even really want her son to play with us, but he found out it was easier to run with us than to get whipped on the way to school every day. I once heard her yell at him while we were waiting on the sidewalk, "Milton, if I catch you giving that junkie bitch's son some of your candy, I'll kill you when you get home." That goes for that little half-white nigger they call Whoreson, too. You hear me, boy? I mean it now. You take this quarter and save some change for school. It had been Tony's idea that Milton try and get some money so we could buy some candy. After Milton bought the candy, Tony wouldn't eat any. He told Milton to take it home and stick it down his mother's big mouth. I helped Milton eat up the candy. She wasn't the first person who had said something about me, nor did I think she would be the last. To tell the truth, I enjoyed eating it, because I knew she didn't want me to have it. Tony seemed so pitiful watching me eat the candy that I suggested we stop at Big Mama's. If she didn't give us any money, she'd sure have something to eat. I wasn't hungry, but I knew Tony was. It seemed as if his mother never did cook, because he was always hungry. Milton started to complain. "Y'all know I can't go up there, Whoreson. You done ate up all my candy, now you don't want me to be with you." I saw a girl from my class at school going down Hastings Street, and I started to run to catch up with her. "Come on, if you ain't scared," I yelled back at Milton. Tony ran beside me and laughed at Milton. "Come on, punk, you might get a chance to see somebody doing it, if you don't be so frightened of your mother." We crossed the street at a dead run, causing a driver to slam on his brakes. He stuck his head out the window and cursed loudly, but it just made us to laugh. Janet turned and saw us coming, but before she could get away, I had grabbed her and felt where her tits should have been, if she had had any. She called me a nasty thing and tried to hit me, but I danced back out of the way. Tony came up behind her, grabbed her by the ass, then jumped back. She screamed and slapped out at him, but she was too slow. He joined me and we laughed. We had started on down the street when 2 whores stepped out of a gangway and caught us from behind. Before we could break loose, Janet had run up and slapped both of us. Tony tried to kick her, but the woman holding him got mad and slapped him upside the head harder than Janet ever could have. "Keep your black-ass feet on the ground, little nigger, you hear?" she commanded. Tony complied by keeping his feet still. Not wanting to appear frightened, I resorted to threats. When I catch you at school, Janet, I'm gonna do more than that. Janet shook her little skinny hips at me. You ain't gonna do nothing, nigga, but try and get along with me, she answered. I tried to get free, but the woman held me tighter. You just wait and see, I yelled. First time I catch you in school, I'm gonna stick it in your tight little puss. Both of the women who had seized us laughed. The one holding Tony remarked gaily, Just listen to him. Ain't neither one of 'em got enough to stick in a pop bottle. I turned bright red, blushing down to my toes. Tony was on the case, though, and he capped sharply, We got enough to bust your big white ass open, woman. Instead of making them angry, his remark only amused them. Then suddenly, we heard a voice roar from the window above us. Big Mama was leaning out of the window. Bring them fresh little niggas up here. I'm gonna see how long it's gonna be before they feel on another little girl in the streets. On hearing the sound of Big Mama's voice, plus seeing that look in her eyes, we really tried to get free. It was useless, though, because after she finished speaking, some more girls helped the first two to carry us upstairs. When we got upstairs, Big Mama bore down on us. Both of us were shaking so bad we couldn't get our lies straight. I tried to explain that we were not feeling Janet, just playing with her. For telling this lie, I got a well-placed slap. After that, the women got together and took our pants off. A white man, coming out of the back bedroom, stopped and gave Big Mama his belt. She took the belt and lit us up with it. After we had begged, cried, and pleaded, plus called her grandma, she gave us our pans back and sent us into the kitchen to eat. After eating some ham hocks and greens, we tried to beg some money out of Big Mama. She promised us another beating if we didn't get out of her sight, so we ran down the stairs. The long, narrow stairway was dimly lit, so we didn't see the two women who had grabbed us until we got to the bottom. They stood in the dilapidated doorway, laughing at us. Tony asked the one who had grabbed him to give up a quarter. She gave him a personal invitation to go to hell, so I tried another approach. I promised the one who had caught me a kiss if she would give up the coin. She stared at me for a moment. Give me one good reason why I should want to kiss you, she said, and I'll give you a quarter. I stared straight into her eyes and stated, Since I'm just a little pimp, all I'm asking for is a quarter. But you know all you whores love to give pimps money. So just give it up, whore. Her mouth flew open, and she just stared. I stepped back out of the way. I knew Jessie had told all of her girlfriends to pop me upside the head whenever they heard me swear, so I wasn't taking no chances. The sound of men laughing caused me to turn. I saw two men sitting in a Cadillac who I knew had to be real pimps. They were wearing silk suits, and their hair was beautifully processed. One of the men called over the girl I'd been talking to. He gave her $2 and pointed at us. You give it to them, he said. That way they can say they really got some whore money. She came back from the car and gave Tony his $1. She held mine in her hand. You owe me something, she said, and leaned down. I caught Tony's eye. He nodded towards her breast. I winked at him and stood on my toes. I put my hand with $1 in it around her neck, then kissed her on the mouth. She stuck her tongue into my mouth. My eyes opened in surprise. Reaching up with my empty hand, I squeezed her left breast. I ducked my head to miss the blow, if one was coming, before she could move. Tony moved in behind her fast, sticking his hand as high up under her dress as it would go. She screamed, and we ran down the street laughing. Tony yelled to me, Whoreson, she ain't got no drawers on. People walking down the street stopped and laughed. Big Mama yelled out of the window at us, and the pimps in the car roared with laughter. The other prostitute broke out in a run after us, but when we cut into a gangway that led into an alley, she stopped. After this experience, Tony and I stayed on Hastings. When we were on this street of excitement, everything seemed to happen. Life was full. Perhaps our introduction to vice was premature for our age, but prepared us well for our chosen profession. My mother tried hard during this period to stop me from hanging around pool rooms and trick houses. Her beatings were useless, though. She even tried using coat hangers twisted together. She called them her pimp sticks and used them only when I had been exceptionally bad. Even after she had used coat hangers, I wouldn't stay off the corner. For 2 or 3 days after a severe beating, I would stay close to the house. But when you're young and wild, you soon forget the whippings, or just try not to get caught next time. Tony had started staying at my house 4 nights out of a week, so Jessie whipped him as much as she did me. After I turned 10, she began to see that beatings were not the answer. She discontinued them, except for when we would sneak back out after she went to work. For some reason, she couldn't stand for me to see her working on the streets. At school, our gang had become a terror. We shook down all the kids our age, plus a few of the older ones. We took their lunch money daily, until one day we beat up 2 brothers who had rebelled against our extortion. Their mother came back to the school with the police. The principal informed the officers that Tony and I were the ringleaders. We denied this, but it didn't do any good. The detectives wouldn't believe our lies, so we ended up being escorted home by them. Tony said we were half-brothers and lived together. I think he told this lie to stop them from going to his house, where they might have found narcotics lying around. When the police knocked, Jessie had to get out of the bed to open the door. She just stood there staring at us when the officer pushed us through the door. After listening to the police talk, her eyes began to shoot sparks. We knew there was big trouble ahead. Without answering, Jessie wheeled around and ran to the bedroom. She reappeared swinging her coat hangers. Her large breasts strained to burst free from the sheer nightgown she wore. In her anger, she hadn't bothered to put on one of her housecoats, so the officers could see just about all they desired. They stared with open admiration. Tony was the one she reached first. I was glad of this because I hoped that she would be tired by the time she reached me. As I watched, I began to shiver with fear. She struck with such brutal intensity that I knew Tony wished he had gone home. I had never seen her like this before. When she released him, he squirmed across the floor in torment. She stood there breathing hard, with her hands on her hips. Her eyes seemed wild. Her features were contorted by rage. I tasted fear for the first time in my life. My mouth was dry. My legs trembled. I stared with fear at this dark, angry woman who I could hardly recognize as my mother. When she moved towards me, I jerked back, breaking the policeman's hold on my arm. Before I could maneuver, my progress was halted by Jessie's unyielding grip. It seemed inflexible. No matter how I wiggled, I couldn't break her hold. The pain was inexpressible. The blows landed first on my back and shoulders, then moved down to my buttocks and legs, then back again. I screamed from sheer pain, mingled with terror. She beat me in such a cold fury, I thought she would kill me. She didn't stop until an officer intervened in my behalf. Seething with anger, she stood over me, her eyes blazing. Her voice was harsh and deadly when she spoke. If I ever hear tale of you taking money from any kids, I'll beat you to death. Do you understand, boy? Between the whimpers that escaped from me, I managed to nod my head. I believed in my heart that Jessie meant what she said. Before they left, the officers told Jessie it would be ridiculous to whip us again. They must have thought that after the demonstration they had witnessed, the next beating would kill us. Tony and I lay on the floor, side by side. Without speaking about it, we knew our extortion racket had come to a sorry end.